Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Peaked, a meetup for electronic music makers. I'm your host, the digital persona of Corey Luna. On AV is Grandmaster Rich Hogben. It is December 16th, 2020, and we've got a wonderful show to end the year with. We've got musical artist Joe Shoemaker and Chad Magnant, and we're also going to have a demo before we get into their performances from a new modular Eurorack company, New Systems Instruments. So before we get into those shows, please welcome the creator of New System Instruments, Evan Buswell, who's going to give us the demo.
What's up, you guys? So just brief musical introduction, and let me switch cams real quick. Alright. So I have two new modules that I want to demo. And we're going to see if we can get a little bit better visuals on them. But basically, one of them, let me switch cams back. One of them, you see over here on the right, I'm going to unplug things so you can see, is a mid-side processor for quadraphonic. So obviously I can't really, demo that via YouTube because it's only stereo, but you were hearing, it does, go back to, like if you don't plug the back channels, then, you'll get, you'll get, just like a stereo mid-side processor. So you can just plug, left, right, and mid. But as a quad mid-side processor, it's amazing. Like I gotta tell you guys, it creates this experience of walking into a room that has music everywhere. like you can walk around in it. It's this big texture. It's not, like sometimes quad can just be like of something like went all around me, but this really like fills up a space. So has left front, left right, or sorry, left back and right back in. And then the sides, there's actually 3 different sides, and then the mid channel. So the mid, the left right side, the front back side, and the cross or diagonal side. So it has that out and in, and everything's, normaled intelligently, so you only have to plug what you need. So the next thing I want to talk about, so Babel is this module here. It's an analog, well, it does 2 things. One of them is analog logic. So if you have some ins, you can get outs of any, if any of them are true, all, if all of them are true, or exclusive sum, if some but not all are true. It has an expander with 7 extra inputs, and you can get a bunch, you can chain these expanders, so you can get as many inputs as you want, basically. So the cool thing about Babel, though, and obviously you may have noticed that the way I was using it was not really like that, but but the cool thing is that it does modulation as well. So any will give you the maximum of the signal, all will give you the minimum, and then exclusive sum will give you kind of this middlemum thing, which actually ends up being pretty much like a cross between wave folding and ring modulation. So you can hear when we have 2 signals in there, you get this very ring modulated like effect. But then the other thing that is nice is, unlike ring modulation, you have as many inputs as you want. So this can create some crazy textures. This is what I was using through most of the song to make it that big texture and the wide texture. I patched that through the mid side to spread out some of these different kinds of modulation. And I'll just, any is there, all is here. So sum, because it has this concept of a middle, that's what these controls do. So they change where the middle is, and you can sort of see it kind of ends up sounding like fading back and forth from ring modulation. So this is a really fun module. One of the things someone mentioned is ring modulation can be hard to use. This is a lot less hard to use. I mean, it just kind of sounds good, no matter where you have the settings. But of course you can get it sounding really good by tweaking and being very careful. So for those of you who don't know, my old mod, or not really that old, these are still just out like a month and a half or so, but I have a VCA. It's 6 HP, 4 different VCAs, completely linear, and very, very, very high fidelity. It has 0.05% total harmonic distortion. So if you need something very, very clean, this is it. Like this is about as good as your sound card is. Not quite, but getting there, getting close. So then the harmonic shift oscillator is my baby, and basically what it does is it has it'll produce a fundamental tone, and then harmonics that are set in a ratio from the fundamental according to this stride knob. So right now this is pretty much only odd harmonics, so we can turn it down. And you see all this stuff in between. And then there's, basically the equivalent of like a sawtooth wave. You can also control the level of it. So, and this thing is crazy versatile. It has CV over everything, and, every time I demo it, I'm like, wait, but I don't tell them about this, and because there's just so much there. But yeah, like it does drums really well. It does bell tones really well. Like you could hear. That's a nice bell there. Different kind of sort of belly tone there. But it also just sounds really good. Just as, a regular oscillator, like you can get it to do these subtle modulations of the harmonics. And of course, you can mess with level directly and via CV, so you don't even necessarily need a filter to get it to make some really awesome stuff. But it also works great with a filter. Can I show it on a scope? Not now, I can't. I don't have that handy. But yeah, basically, what you'll see is, what you'll see is kind of like slant, like a sawtooth, like a point that'll get larger as the level goes up when it's in 1-to-1 stride, so it's getting all the harmonics. Of course, like it looks like all kinds of different stuff. There's also a quadrature out on it, so you can actually get some really nice Lysijaus figures by patching 1 to X and 1 to Y. So it is actually pretty fun to look at on a scope. But I don't have that. There's a little bit of the Lysijaus on the demo video if you want to go look at that. But yeah, these are up on the website right now, and they're here. Let me hold on a sec. All right, so Babel is up there. It's Babel and the quad mid side are a bit cheaper. It's $135 for Babel, and $110 for the quad mid side. So the oscillator is a bit more expensive because there's a bunch of crazy parts in it that are not cheap. But anyway, yeah, go check it out. Go look at my website. And I wanted to leave time if anyone had any questions or if they wanted me to demo anything in particular. Yes, no. I can just keep
questions from here. So Evan, I was thinking, one of the things I was really impressed with was your oscillator and how melodic it was. You were able to make it sound, really beautiful, and you also have some really good bass tones that come out of that oscillator that you have up on the demos. And
yeah, thanks.
Demonstrate a little bit of those bass tones.
Yeah, the bass tones are really great. It's the thing about harmonics, right, is they go up to the edge of our hearing. They don't really go down. So, you have something that does something interesting with harmonics, and it sounds really good in as the bass tone. Yeah, and of course, you know, I didn't mention it, but there's of course full per octave control on it. The FM is not through 0, but the FM, I'll show you the FM, because the FM is actually crazy. One of the things that it does that most FMs don't is self-modulation. Let me switch it back to the other cam so you can see. But yeah, so this is just the output patch right back to the input. And it does all kinds of weird and interesting things. Yeah, it does amazing FM. And just, you know, like, one of the things also is a lot of people are wimpy on their FM knobs, so I specifically wanted to not do that. So this goes all the way that you'd want it to go. And also does, you know, subtle. Yeah. So, someone asked me to talk about the mid-side again, so I can do that briefly. But yeah, the mid-side is great. It's for quadrature. So if you have quadrature, or if you're thinking about getting quadrature, like, this makes it. I mean, for me, like, honestly, I never really thought too much about quadrature because it's sort of like ends up just positioning a sound in space. So it's just sort of about image, you know, and like you can get pretty good stereo images, like, but the nice thing about, you know, quad, especially with this module, is that it's no longer about the image. It's more like you fill a space and you can walk around and like find different places in the room that have, you know, one tone or another, because you have all of these different signals that are anti-correlated, you know, with mid-side. And that means that within the room there's spaces that sound different. So it's like, you know, when you have this thing, it's kind of like, for the first time, rather than having a sound up there against the wall, you can walk into the sound and like be there with it. So, you know, I don't want to get like super esoteric, but that's kind of how it felt for me when I first plugged this thing in and first plugged in quad. I was just like, holy crap. So it was wonderful. And yeah, I mean, this is also, it's pretty easy to use. Like the sides are pretty intuitive, you know, left, right side, the difference between left and right, front, back side, the difference between front and back, and cross is sort of this diagonal side. One of the things about quad, right, is one thing that you find out making mid-side is that it's redundant, right? You only actually need 3 speakers to have space. So this cross is kind of the redundancy. It's that extra, you know, tension that you get with 4 speakers instead of just 3. Yeah. Any other questions? the quad inside is not CV controllable. I mean, you can put a VCA into it, and then it is. But yeah. Of course, you can do FM on the stride as well for a different kind of sound. And this doesn't affect the fundamental at all, so. Yeah, this module is really fun. One of the ways that I know, that I'm done with a module is when I'm sitting there testing it, I just don't stop playing with it. Or, in this case, demoing it. It's just like, ooh, let's do it there. You can order them on my website, selling direct. You can also get them through Mission Synths, who's this new Bay Area store. And they're great, so you guys should check them out. I'm working on getting them to other places, so stay tuned. But they're on my website right now. Someone's asking about the VCA being low THD. Yeah, for the VCO, keeping the volt per octave stable. It's temperature compensated, so it should be pretty stable. It's this thing is a bit of a nightmare to be stable because internally it has 2 VCOs, which you might have one 4 octaves above the other, and they need to stay in tune. So it's what I'm saying is about 7 octaves that it's very stable with. Past that, if you're playing slowly, it's still stable. But you might lose up to 5 or 10 cents. But really, compared to any other oscillator, it's about on par. It's not too different. What modules I have happening in the future? I have a filter that's coming up soon. Beyond that, I don't think I'll say too much. But I'm working on trying to get just some really creative stuff. I'm trying to wait until whatever I have is on par with these modules that I have here in terms of this isn't what's out there. So stay tuned. I promise you it won't be boring.
Thank you, Evan. That was really awesome of you to do this for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure.
It's what you're doing is fascinating. I'm always happy to learn more about new companies and new modules coming out, and I think you're the first person I know that's developed their own modules, and I'm always excited to learn more about them and help promote them as much as I can.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be on here. Hopefully I'll be on here again in a few months when I have even more stuff to show people.
Absolutely. And I wanted to let everyone know that's watching, those of you who weren't there for the show last year, Evan actually performed at Peak live when we were doing shows in San Francisco under his artist name Next Expanse, which was a really fun show because you had like 5 different synths going on at once. You had all these surprises. It was really great. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you again real soon, Evan. So
Awesome.
And stick around, man. I'm sure people are going to have some questions, and you might have some questions too, for Joe and Chad after their performances tonight.
Definitely, I look very much forward to it. I'm a fan. I didn't know about Chad's work until this event, but I'm already a fan. But Joe, I've definitely been a fan of. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So this is really great. So we're gonna thank you again. This is New System Instruments, and he's got his website. He's also got an Instagram account of the same name. It's NS Instruments, I believe it is.
NS.Instruments. Someone
NS
had NS
Instruments.
Instruments. Some jerk.
I'm terrible with these things. So that was a great demo. Now let's get on to some great performances. We're going to start off with Joe Shoemaker, and I have to get into character for this with my power helmet.
Yeah, there we go.
Take it away, Joe.
Alrighty. Thank you for tuning in. It's a bit past my bedtime, but I'm making an exception tonight. So, I'm gonna play some music. Yeah.
Joe Shoemaker, everybody. How about that? That was a great set. Wow. You've got so much love coming through the stream here on the chat, man. It's really wonderful. And you know, we're all feeling warm and fuzzy now after that set.
Good.
And thank you again, Joe. That was really wonderful. Totally beautiful, man. We're, you know, this everyone's blowing up over here. It's so amazing what your performance was so beautiful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And before we get further into Joe's process, we're going to go over to Chad Magnant and have an interesting set coming out of Canada. Chad, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Take it away, sir, when you're ready. Chad, thank you so much. I got whiplash from that performance. That was great.
It's short.
You speak a little closer to the mic, a little bit.
Okay. Yep.
Again, man, that was a great set. Totally different from Joe's, of course, but that's why I picked you, because I love having the dynamics of mellow and hard all together.
Yep,
It's so much
definitely.
fun to have all those things going on together, so that you guys complement each other a little bit with the different sound textures that you both create in very different places. So again, I want to say thank you again for all three of you for coming on tonight, closing out the year, it's December. We're halfway through the month already, and this is a great way to, I think, to close out 2020. Now let's get into some questions. So let's start out with let's go straight over to Joe real quick and
Yo.
tell us a little bit about how you prepared for tonight for Peaked. Give us a little bit of rundown with how you decided on what modules to use, how you wanted to go with your composition tonight.
Yeah, this is my fairly standard setup. Usually for shows, I just do OP1 and a modular. And then all my big guys like Mellotron, I'll just sample it into OP1 and use it just because for ease of transportation. But since we're doing it in my room, figured I'd bust out my trusty Mellotron. So basically the way I typically work is I record a bunch of samples and things onto the tape loop of the OP1. OP1 sends clock to everything. It's kind of the controller of everything. The modular is mostly just doing like effects processing and kind of taking what the OP1 is feeding it and playing its own. It's kind of like having a bandmate with me. And then the Mellotron's just because I like to play keyboards and I think it's the most beautiful instrument ever made. So
you play the Mellotron really well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's these three instruments are probably my favorite three instruments that exist, I would say. And
tell us about your microphone.
My microphone, this is my telephone. I think this was before I even got into synthesizers. I think I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I found this telephone at a Goodwill, and my buddy showed me how to turn it into a silly little microphone, and I think I've used it at every show. It's the only microphone I own. It's the only one I own. I've never owned another microphone. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, if you count the microphone on the OP1, I guess that's the only other one. But like for my album, I used this telephone and the OP1 microphone for everything.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, it really bums people out sometimes when they figure that one out.
I think it's creative, man. That's part of your sound, and that's unique to what you perform. I think that's really fantastic, man. And now let's jump over to Chad. Chad, tell us about your performance tonight, how you prepared for Peaked, and give us a little rundown about the what you're using in there. Looks like you've got a lot of Moogs in there, and we're really curious about the what you were using on the far right of your table there. We were thinking maybe it was an SQ1, but I wasn't sure. That was just a guess.
It's an Erica bassline.
An Erica bassline. Oh,
yeah, which
nice.
I just bought as my Black Friday purchase. Yeah, I don't know. The first piece was DFAM and actually the Manus Itertus noise engineering.
Cool.
But sequencing it on the other Moog and running it through the filter on the other Moog. And then that second little bit was on the second Mother 32. Then there's that the bit at the end on the analog rhythm was kind of a film score piece, I suppose. I sampled some bits in there from Omnisphere. There's some guitars in there, and I think there's one voice that's actually off the analog rhythm.
Very cool. Chad, how did you get into playing synthesizers?
I actually bought my first Mother 32. We were doing some short films. I actually bought the first Mother 32 thinking I'd score short films with it. And I was planning on just double tracking, but I fell in love with it. And then pretty soon, you need to, and then you need the case, and then you need to fill your case. Then BFAM comes out, and yeah. And then, yeah, I don't know. Started picking up lots of distortions and the analog heats back there.
All right, cool, man. And Joe, tell us a little bit about how you got into synthesizers. You've got a large musical background, I think.
Yeah. I've been playing piano since I was a little kid, and just was super into keyboards. And let's see, I think my first synthesizer was an Oasis Micron, and then like an M Audio Venom, and then it really spiraled out of control after that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always just kind of played keyboard instruments, and that kind of, after a while, you get bored with piano. So kind of a natural progression, I think, for
Very
some
cool,
people.
Absolutely. We've got a question for Chad from what we got here from Fetz. He asked, Chad, what is your musical background?
Definitely metal. I started out playing in metal bands. Speed
Nice.
metal, some sludgy metal back in the 90s.
Cool.
Way back. Kind of Melvin-y sludgy metal.
No, I can definitely hear it, man.
I was
Like,
always into, I was always into synths though. I was liked industrial and always dug synthesizers too.
Absolutely, man. You've got. I was thinking like Headbangers Ball, like when you started playing, right? and then like I hear stuff that I would hear in clubs in around the Bay Area around here back in the early aughts when I was going out to clubs, and when I was going to be like goth clubs, things like that, and you would have like a mix of like goth and industrial music going on at the same time from the DJs going on,
Yeah.
and you had both those elements going on in your set,
Yeah.
where with the hard hitting stuff and then with the more mellow, beautiful synth hits you were playing later on. Absolutely.
Always liked lots of different kinds of music. Always liked film scores and especially synthesizer film scores. Yeah, I don't know. Lots of different kinds of music. Drum and bass. There's probably a little bit of drum and bass in the Erica bass line piece.
Oh, very cool, man. And we've got a question for Joe. Electric Kitchen wants to know if that is an actual VL tone on your wall.
That's an actual VL tone box on the wall, but the VL tone, I do have it. It's just in the other room on some of my other keyboards. My house is full of keyboards and synthesizers. But yeah, it's the box. I think the box is really cool. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the boxes before, but they're cool. So I put it on my wall.
And Lenny Hamker says, I see the FLXS1 in the rack.
Yeah, I've got the Fluxus over here, and to be totally honest with you, it just looks nicer than a big blank panel, because that's about how much I use it. Not talking any smack on Fluxus. I was kind of one of the first people to get it. I've had a lot of issues with it, and he kind of disappeared. And it's cool, but it's got so many bugs in it at the moment, at least mine does, that I kind of just keep it in the rack for the light show, and I don't really use it these days. If anyone wants it, it's for sale.
Chad, I was curious about when you mentioned musical scores. What are some of the composers or movies that have influenced your music?
Oh man, Star Trek. I like Cliff Martinez scores. Oh man, tons of stuff. Back in the day, like Sorcerer. Back in
Oh
the
yeah,
day. Yeah.
Andrian Dream on Sorcerer,
Yeah, for sure,
classic.
Stuff like that, yeah.
I was a huge fan of Thief.
Oh yeah, see, yeah, that one's awesome too. I don't know, always Miami Vice, man. Growing
Yeah,
up,
that's good.
always
Good
watched Miami
score.
Vice. Yeah,
Absolutely, man.
that was probably an early synth influence.
Definitely. it's a funny thing, just because it's an 80s reference. The composer that wrote the theme song to Beverly Hills Cop, he's a German fellow. I can't remember his name right now. I'm sure someone here will know. But last year in 2019, in March, he was one of the people featured at a Synthplex in LA, and I got to go to the panel, and he had a whole a little setup, real easy setup with with a keyboard controller, and played the Miami Vice uh, theme song, and talked about how he wrote it and how like the director actually didn't like the song when he wrote it, but ended up getting in there anyway. And I think he was saying that the director like didn't like that it was actually very popular at the time and worked very well for the movie.
Yeah. Is
But
it Hans Yammer or something?
that's
like
it.
that?
That's it.
Yeah,
Hans Yammer.
yeah.
Yeah, nice fella. It was really cool to see him live and talk about that. And and again, like back to what we were about, the whole idea of the composers and soundtracks and theme songs influencing our music, things like that, whether they even sound like us as well. And like personally, one of the one of the 70s movies I remember watching not too long ago was I think it was called Shock Troopers. I can't remember the name of that composer either. Richard Aronjan, it may have been, could have been. Anyway, it was a really great soundtrack. Filmed in Florida, low budget film, and again, like really great ambient, dark stuff he was doing with that. And it was just something really great that when I hear something like that, if it hits me in the right place, man, I'll go out, I'll come into my studio and just start playing. And just because it's influencing me, and I'll be in that mindset. Do you guys ever get like that, Joe and Chad?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right music with the right visuals. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, totally, man.
Totally.
And Evan, do you have any questions for our guests tonight? Or
Yeah, sure.
comment?
Actually, I mean, first of all, that was just great. You know, during Joe's set, I think I lost about 10 pounds of stress. But yeah, no, I actually have a question for Joe. I'm just curious, like you do such like masterful layering of so many things happening at once, and I'm wondering how you go about that, whether it's like a build up thing, it's like you have an idea in your mind beforehand, or just how that comes about.
Not usually. The only thing I usually have in mind beforehand is, like what key I'm gonna play it in, or if I want to modulate at some point. But essentially, it's just kind of trial and error. It's a lot of just improvising lines on the OP1 tape loop, and then just kind of setting the parameters in the modular to where, it's semi-predictable. I kind of know, like, in the vein of what it's going to do, and then kind of letting it just play itself, and then feeding off of that and putting my own things into it, and vice versa. But yeah, I don't really have much of a method when I'm starting out, other than like, this is the tempo I'm going to play it at, and this is the key I'm going to play it in.
Do you get a method later on?
Well, I mean, I guess overall, because I come from the mindset of like songwriting, so I like to approach like a set of music. I mean, Chad did this too, where it kind of has that arc to it, where it's got the introduction, build ups, peaks and valleys. So I mean, that's kind of as far as my pre-thought out methodology goes. And then I kind of just let things happen, and I get ideas as I go, which I think is pretty typical for a lot of songwriters.
Yeah, I mean, it works definitely.
Yeah, and I think another important thing is I like to pick my like sound palette for the set or for the song before I make it. So I I work within the parameters of knowing, you know, I have these set of sounds. I don't have infinite sounds, because then I'll just lose my mind. So I'm working within like a certain palette, and then just kind of working within the sounds and textures within that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like one of the things about, you know, modular, right, is it's really easy to get lost in
Yeah.
making sounds and not making melodies, and you definitely have lots of wonderful little melodies.
Yeah, I tend to go melody first, and then find the sound that fits the melody, usually.
For the drums off the OP one?
Yeah, drums are, some of it is my like actual shitty drum set that I have in the other room that I just like recorded into the OP1 mic, just like a kick, a snare, and a hat.
Yeah.
And then some of it, like I'll sample drums from the modular into it, or I'll sample like, you know, I take the OP1 with me literally everywhere. Like it's always on my person. So if I like hear a cool sound somewhere, like I step on a cool leaf, then I'll just sample it real quick and then
That's cool.
use it as a drum sound later.
That's
talking about
fantastic.
your, oh, sorry. You're talking about your job earlier. That seems like you're in the right job, man.
Yeah, it's all kind of worked out,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah, I totally agree that it makes a lot of sense and helps you as well when if you're working in Eurorack or modular in general, to limit the amount of modules you're using, limit your palette to only a select few to help you concentrate on those particular modules, you know, so that way you're not multitasking everywhere. You're focusing in on just a few, and you're able to create, you know, better structure to your songs.
Yeah, I've also found that if I don't do that, if I don't like start with creating the parameters, then I'll start to use like this set of modules, and then I'll get like bummed out that I'm not using this one that's in the corner because I feel bad because I have it, so I should use it. So if I like set the parameters that these are the only ones that I'm going to use beforehand, then I don't get that like bummed out sense that just takes me off in a weird direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is also why it's sometimes useful to have a smaller case. You know, like I recently went back to my 2-row 104 HP case, and it's nicer because there's less possibility. Like I don't need that much possibility. Like usually when I end up with a song, it's like a couple of modules, you know, and usually when I'm don't end up with a song, it's like everything's patched to everything else.
Hey, Chad, you're in Canada. You're in British Columbia. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Prince George, British Columbia.
Nice. And so for all of our listeners, Chad is our first international guest on Peaked, which is really, really fun. You know, so
Cool.
Chad, thanks again, man, for hanging out with us over here in the States, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's been mostly, you know, a Bay Area thing out of San Francisco, which is where we started. And since August, we revamped what we were doing and went all virtual. Because originally this was a live show. Evan's been to every single one, and you know, and he was driving down from like Davis every like once a month, and we've been able to successfully do it online since then, and it's been pretty wonderful. Actually, we've had a couple bugs here and there, but overall, it's actually been a pretty good experience. We've been able to get some other guests out of SoCal, like Untitled Chapter last month was really great to do the show with us, and yeah, man, I'm really happy that we were able to get you on tonight, and that it's so far it's been fine. Like there's been no loss of feed at all, and I'm really, really excited about that. I'm really happy.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. That was fun.
Absolutely, man. You know, like, and as I said earlier, when you and I were chatting before the show started, Chad, I've been listening to your music for a little while, mostly through Instagram, and which are just like 1-minute clips of your music, at kind of a you know, closer angle shots of your synths, which is always fun, and it's always, you know, you've got a particular sound to what you do. It's very industrial, and I love that. I'm a big fan of industrial. I love listening to like Nitzer Ebb. Those guys always kick it off for me, man. Um, it's so fun to just be able to have this community that we're able to, even though we're all at our homes, we're able to connect and bring it all together and have a wonderful time at doing it. Because as I said before, like Joe had this great beautiful melody going on, and you came in with this crashing down and demolished our ears. Someone even said he's got to buy new speakers.
It's cool seeing comments from people from Instagram that I know their names. Kind of never met them, but know their names from Instagram. That's awesome.
It's pretty amazing how a lot of the people I've met over the past couple of years have actually been through Instagram. There's been a lot of conversations I've had over just the chat, over the messaging to book people for Peaked, especially this year, which has been pretty amazing and been actually really great. Like there's actually some other wonderful people that I've been chatting with online to play Peaked in 2021.
Cool.
And Chad, I'm really glad again, and Joe, of course, and Evan, that we're all able to come together and do this. And looking forward to what you guys are going to put out next. I know, Joe, you put out an album recently this year, which is called Flowers and Weeds. Is that correct?
Yeah, it came out, I think it was in June. Yeah, it was my first real big boy album.
Oh yeah. Tell us a little bit about producing your big boy album.
Yeah, well, I started doing it kind of at the beginning of the quarantine, just as something to deal with all the madness that was going on. And originally it was just going to be like I was kind of writing like a 4-part weird like sonata kind of thing, but then went off in all these directions and realized it was finally time to put out a full album. So I just kind of went for it, and it was kind of nice because it was when when the isolation first kind of began, and we were all taken away from our community and our friends really quick. And it was I got like my buddy to do some of the artwork for me. I got my good friend Nathan Moody, who I'm sure you guys know, to do the mastering and kind of give me some advice there. And it was a way for me to reach out to a lot of different people, and a way for me to kind of deal with all the crap going on this year. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So, and I have some cassette tapes left if anyone wants some. I think there's like 12 left on Bandcamp. I have more though, so if they sell out, you can just hit me up. I got more. Yeah.
Excellent, man. Yeah, and it's a good album. I've listened to everything on your Bandcamp. It was really fun to listen to Flowers and Weeds. And Chad, you've got 2 albums on Bandcamp as well?
There's one album in sample pack, but I definitely need to record more and put some albums out up on Bandcamp.
Okay. In preparation for this, I always try to make sure to listen to what the guests have been putting out, and I listen to what you have on there. And I listened all through what you have on there. And Ghostly White Claws, I think is that the 5-track album you've got on there?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about putting that together.
I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's actually quite different from what I normally play. It's kind of not heavy. It's a little bit more ambient. I don't know. I did 1 track, and then I just kept doing some tracks and decided to throw it up on Bandcamp.
That's a good place for it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. Do you have any upcoming albums you're working on?
Nothing right now. I don't know. I put a few tracks down, but that's something I need to work on.
All right, man. Very cool. Evan.
Yeah.
Thanks again for bringing some new module releases you're going to be coming out with today, man. And very soon with the Babel. That's really great, man.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited about it. I actually just got boards and the final prototype for them today. So I'm hoping to have them shipping by January 3rd, which is super soon. So they're already up there, ready for pre-order, and yeah, and there's I'm designing like crazy. Like, I should probably stop and do more marketing and actually selling, but I'm not. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of stuff.
Excellent. And we've got a question from Dylan Sang, also known as Dylan909, who's also been on Peaked. He asks, do you guys multi-track or do more live? Joe?
Well, for the album, it was all multi-track. This is really the first time I've ever done like a bunch of multi-tracking. It's pretty fun. I used to be kind of against it, but it's pretty fun. But when I play live, it's all live, I guess. But yeah, my recording process has turned into like 60 tracks over one another.
Absolutely. And Chad, do you do multi-tracking or more perform or record live?
The album that's on Bandcamp is just live. If I'm doing like kind of film score work for short films or something, that's all multi-track. But yeah, the Bandcamp album is just live from the modular.
Do you have any work out on any short films?
I did a bunch a while ago. We were supposed to be doing a film, like a half-hour sci-fi project, but it's sort of, I don't know if it's postponed or canceled because of COVID. I bought Omnisphere and kind of got all prepped for it, and then COVID happened. So.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
I understand. And our friend Malarkey, Patrick Coleman, is asking if there's a Peaked compilation coming out. And I think Patrick, I think you might be thinking about the Modular Alliance compilation. We don't have a Peaked. There's no Peaked compilation coming out. Nothing has been discussed about that. Although it's not a bad idea.
I think that's intended to be a leading question. Like, hey,
of course,
should there be?
Should there be? It's something that Rich and I should probably talk about. Right, Rich? Yeah, that's something we should definitely maybe think about. But that could be fun. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people. Speaking of, I should actually go through a list. I wanted to do this early. I wanted to do this last year as an end to last year, but I totally spaced on it because live shows, everything happens all at once, and I always forget something when I'm doing a live show. But since I have a computer in front of me, I can do this a little bit easier. So I wanted to say thank you and pay homage to all the performers that have been on Peaked ever since the very first one. Back in, I think it was April of 2019 when Rich and I first did our first show. And he and I came together and put our resources together to put this together. He does more of the technical back end side for audio visuals, and my connection is I know most of the artists, they're friends of mine, and I have a tendency to talk too much. So I want to say thank you to all the performers of Peaked, starting with episode 1 with Matt Bidoff and Musical Fungus. Episode 2, Roy Shades, also known as currently All That's Gone, with Density and Time. Episode 3, Dylan909 and Yate. And then we had a compilation with HDTG and Peaked, where we had our special guest Andrew Belt, who created VCVRack, do a talk with us, which was really fun. And then episode 4 with Mark Letzner and Lachlan Fletcher, who did a duo together, which was really great. They worked on this piece together where one started and one ended, and it flowed together beautifully. Really great performance. Episode 5 was my boy Aton Leon and Musical Fungus again, because he asked to play again because he liked it so much. Episode 6, Need for Storms. We miss you, man. He's up in Canada now. Proud dad. And with M0. And M0, he's a great performer, man. He's still here in the Bay Area. Really great stuff. He's engineer himself. Episode 7, we had Will Pragnell and Jay Lee. They're both local fellas over here. Episode 8, we had Actius, Eki Shola, and Next Expanse. Evan, great job. Episode 9, we had Nathan Moody and Sirnai, which was a real treat. And funny thing is, I spaced on introducing Nathan and Sirnai together that day. Sirnai was running a little late, coming from Walnut Creek, and we had Nathan play first, and then Sirnai showed up during his performance, and I totally forgot to introduce them. And later on after the show, Nathan introduced himself and mentioned how much he has been a fan of Sirnai for many years, and I felt I was embarrassed of myself that I didn't introduce them. So sorry about that, guys. Episode 10, we had Hex Mode and Clark Harding. Great performances from those guys, really fun. And then the last live show we had, episode 11, was Alpha Stair and Stevie Synth. That was a really fun show because also in similar to what we did today with new systems instruments, we had a different modular company come up to us and ask if they would do a demo, if they could do a demo. It was oh man, I can never remember the name of this schedule.
Instruments of Things.
Instruments of Things. Thank you so much, Evan. I can never remember that name, but it's they do some really great stuff. They've got this great piece for where it's got controllers that are Bluetooth, and they're just little pieces in your hand. You can control the module without even touching it. Really cool stuff. Really innovative. They're out of Germany. Really great fellas. Christopher Fantasy was on their bandwagon, and he's a really nice guy. And he's going to play next year sometime too. That was our last live show before the shutdown. That was February of this year, and then we took about 4 months off. We came back in I think August, and for episode 12 we had Fetz and Frank Martin. You guys are here right now. Thank you again for playing. Episode 13 was Shabalba and Malarkey. Thank you again. I know you two are watching right now. Episode 4 was Veer and Wabi Sabi. And I think that was the first time we had someone out of state actually play. Wabi Sabi's in Seattle, Washington. In episode 15, we had Jordan Michael Francis and Particle Fields. That was a really fun set. And then last month, episode 16, was Chantal DeFelice and Futuro. Again, really great stuff going on over there. And of course, brings us up to episode 17 with Joe Shoemaker, Chad Magnant, and New Systems Instruments. I just wanted something that I should have done last year, but I'm really happy I was able to remember to take the time to actually write it all out so I don't forget to do it. Thank you everyone so much for coming out and being on Peaked when it was a live show, and thank you all for coming on and performing virtually and continuing on this wonderful community of electronic music. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to organize it and see amazing performers still coming out. And I'm always happy to promote all the music you put out there, the modules that are coming out. You guys are doing amazing things and creating a beautiful future.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thanks
a
for
lot.
having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And